Hey, welcome in. Well, folks, parody is reality. That's where we are. That's where this funny old world is these days. You may have heard of Titania Mcgrath. Now, that's a parody account. A parody of a young woke person. And Titania Mcgrath is actually this guy, Andrew Doyle, who's an English comedian. And he made up this character, Titania Mcgrath, to basically parody wokeness. Now, the thing about this is that everything we're going to see actually does conform with woke dogma, with like intersectional dogma. It all does actually conform with it. That's why it's so hard to tell parody from reality. Let's take a look at the bio of Titania here. It says, activist, healer, radical intersectionalist poet, non-white, which you can see clearly is white, ecosexual. Pronouns are variable, and selfless and brave. Buy my books. And, you know, it is hard to parody these days because, I mean, all these things that are in here, activist, healer, radical, intersectionalist, poet, I mean, these are things that just people that are serious put in their bios, right? And certainly it wouldn't be the first white person to claim to be non-white, who's just obviously actually white, right? I've done several videos on these people. But this is a parody, and it's a parody of somebody who is just irredeemably woke, irrational, and unreasonable. And in this parody account, there were a bunch of predictions made, and it turns out because parody is reality, they all came true. Again, that line between, satire and reality is so blurred now that it's really hard to one-up the woke themselves. I mean, the things they say are so crazy that it's hard to one-up them. But anyway, let's take a look at this. It says here, important thread. Many people scoff at my progressive ideas and predictions, but eventually they always come true. So I thought I'd start compiling a list of every time I was ahead of the curve. So what are these predictions? Titania's predictions, part 1. Just going to interrupt for 1 second to say, if you like this content, subscribe so you can see more. Thanks a lot. Let's see. On 22nd December 2018, I called for biological sex to be removed from birth certificates. On 17th December 2020, the New England Journal of Medicine concurred. Let's see. Here's the tweet. We should remove biological sex from birth certificates altogether to prevent any more mistakes from being made. And the New England Journal of Medicine. We believe that it is now time to update the practice of designating sex on birth certificates. Let's see, it says above that, sex designations on birth certificates offer no clinical utility. Really? No clinical utility? Knowing the sex offers no clinical utility with a sexually dimorphic species? That doesn't seem very right. Unless, of course, it's just obvious what their actual sex is, right? Which, of course, it is. Let's see, second one. Here's Titania Mcgrath saying, white parents, if you really want to prove that you're not racist, you should send your teenage daughters on unaccompanied walking holidays in the tribal regions of North Pakistan. Oh, God. Okay, the world is parody because Forbes magazine, why Pakistan should be on every solo female traveler's bucket list. Yikes. I just had to pull this up from The Guardian. Pakistan, where the daily slaughter of women barely makes the news. Well, it doesn't make Forbes, apparently. But, I mean, look, if you're that determined to be woke, all right. Let's see. Number 3. Here's an old photo of Julie Andrews applying blackface for a production of Porgy and Bess. Here's a reply here. No, she wasn't applying blackface. She was covered in chimney suit. How about you watch the movie before you make the post? See, this is the thing, is that it's hard to know what's parody and what's not, right? Because this is the kind of stupid thing that an actually genuinely woke person would write. You can't tell the difference anymore. But anyway, let's see. The New York Times. Mary Poppins and a nanny shameful flirting with blackface. So, I mean, this was about, chimney sweeping, right? I mean, come on. But it's the New York Times. This is the New York Times doing this. So this sort of lunacy, I mean, it is mainstream. That's why it's hard to tell the difference between parody and what people are actually thinking and saying. All right, let's move on. Let's see. On 7th of March, 2019, I published my book, Woke, in which I argued that skyscrapers are oppressive phallic symbols. On 6th July, 2020, The Guardian concurred. Let's see. The Guardian. Upward thrusting buildings ejaculating into the sky. Do cities have to be so sexist? It's the only explanation, right? Utility has nothing to do with it. Toxic masculinity is built into the fabric of our urban spaces, writes Leslie Kern, author of new book, Feminist City. And the results aren't just divisive. They can be lethal. Now, I would say that The Guardian should get its head out of the gutter on this one. And again, this is, The Guardian is a big newspaper. I mean, how do you tell the difference between parody and reality when they're publishing stories like this? And what could this feminist city look like? I mean, what do you do? Is it underground? Is it just an inverted skyscraper that just goes deep underground? I mean, it's just you have limited space and you have to jam a bunch of people into it. So you go vertical. That makes sense. But I think that when you have the new kind of business model for the new media, since the rising of the internet, you have a weird combination of the need to get clicks mixed with this weird woke culture that seems to be just endemic within all of the institutions now, news media, universities, politics itself, corporate culture. Anyway, let's continue. Let's see. I've decided to award new intersectional Oscars to ensure diversity triumphs over merit. Problem is, people actually agree with this, and not ironically. Let's see. The categories include Most Feminist Picture, Most Woke Screenplay, Least Predatory Male, Gayest Sound Editing, like that one, Fattest Supporting Filipino, oh dear, Bravest Vegan in a Trans Black Role. So again, this was the prediction from Titania Mcgrath, and what do we get? Oscars announced new diversity and inclusion plans. Well, maybe they didn't go quite as extreme as Titania wanted, but certainly in the spirit of it. In the spirit of diversity over merit. Let's see. How about this one here? Twitter should come up with an option to automatically mute all straight white males. Okay, this one sounds all too plausible, and Instagram features new mute white people sticker. Because that's not racist. That's fighting racism. I mean, the way you fight racism is by judging people by skin color. Obviously, right? Again, parody is reality. Let's see. How about this one? We should give all newborn babies numbers rather than names until they are ready to determine their own gender identity. Good Lord. Nobody could possibly agree with this, right? That has to just be parody. That can't be the real world. Well, let's see. Well, Elon Musk gave their child a number name. Okay. I kind of like Elon, though, so I don't know. I guess he just lost his mind for a second. But still, let's see. How about this one? The great tragedy of this pandemic is that children throughout the UK have been indoctrinated into appropriating the LGBTQIA plus flag. Never mind the virus. We need a vaccine for bigotry. Shows a bunch of drawings here by children with the rainbow flag, but they're appropriating it. Again, this all actually works within the intersectional dogma. That's the thing. Anyway, from Forbes again. Should the LGBT community call out appropriation of rainbow flag for NHS? Boy, oh boy. Let's see, how about this one? Look out for my new article in tomorrow's edition of The Times. I will never forgive myself if I don't have a full-blown punch-up with my grandmother over Brexit on Christmas Day. Titania Mcgrath, slam poet. And right on cue, here's an article from The Nation. This Thanksgiving, it's time to fight with your relatives. You may not like the conflict, but if you choose to break bread with Trump supporters and climate change deniers because you happen to be related to them, then conflict is required. That's right. It seems to be a recurring theme within the kind of the new left, or the whatever it is, this wokeness, intersectionality, postmodernism, whatever, is that they seem to want to try and drive a wedge between people and their families, people and their friends. If they don't, if they're not orthodox in their wokeness. It's a recurring theme you see often. But again, it's parody is now reality. Let's see, how about this one? In March 2019, I published my book Woke, in which I called out Helen Keller for her white privilege. On 15th December 2020, Time Magazine concurred, and I might actually do a video on this as well, just specifically on this, because it's so ridiculous. Consider, if you will, the example of white American author Helen Keller. Even though she was left deaf and blind following an illness as a baby, she still managed to study for a degree, write 12 books, and travel the world to give lectures. This kind of privilege is staggering. So that's the parody from Titania. And what's the reality? This is from Time Magazine. However, to some black disability rights activists like Anita Cameron, Helen Keller is not radical at all. Just another, despite disabilities, privileged white person, and yet another example of history telling the story of privileged white Americans. Ah, dearie me. I mean, can't you cut Helen Keller a break, for God's sakes? Deaf and blind? Come on. No, it's never enough. Never enough. So, and it makes perfect sense in intersectionality, right? Because it's always different intersections of privilege and oppression. Because, although in life, Helen Keller definitely drew the short end of the stick there, right? She was white, and there were also people that had disabilities that weren't, so therefore, oppressor. I know it sounds insane, but that's what these people actually believe. So on one hand, it is hilarious. I mean, it's fun to laugh at. It's also kind of depressing, is it not? And kind of shocking. And what I see through all this stuff is just utter and total moral confusion, which is not surprising if you're woke. I mean, the dogma surrounding it, intersectionality, is deeply morally confused, and in many ways just totally reprehensible. I mean, it is based on racism, like it's racial theories. There's not really much difference between their ideas than the Nuremberg laws, if you just kind of change the races around, right? And I guess a big problem with parodying all of this is that they're moving so rapidly to the left that it's hard to keep up with them. It's hard to put out something making fun of them, something they might do, before they do it, because usually they're ahead of you. And so, parody and reality are just merging into the same thing. I don't know. Maybe we should call it like pre-ality or something. I don't know. Anyway, that's all I got to say about that. Please subscribe, like, and share. That really helps me out. I am on Rumble. I am on BitChute. I'm on Minds, Parler, Odyssey. These are all great platforms. Check me out there if you just like to listen. There's the podcast. It's on pretty much every platform, including Spotify. Thanks a lot. I will see you next time.